is seeing historic success in the Everglades.
As Fox 35's Carla Byron explains, it's helping to remove Burmese pythons from the wild in record numbers.
When Florida announced it would release native predators back into the wild, critics scoffed. More snakes? They asked. In a state already battling tens of thousands of invasive pythons, the idea sounded reckless. But behind the headlines was not desperation or spectacle. It was a calculated, science-driven attempt to restore a collapsing ecosystem. To understand why Florida took that risk, we have to go back to the beginning. Before the jokes, before the viral footage, before the silence. The Florida Everglades is one of the most valuable and unique ecosystems on Earth, contributing an estimated $31.5 billion annually in ecological services, supporting tourism, fisheries, water filtration, and flood control. Once, it was a mosaic of sawgrass prairies and shallow water stretching to the horizon. Raccoons moved through the marsh. Marsh rabbits darted between grasses. Bobcats and deer thrived along the edges. It was wild in the truest sense. Then came a storm. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew tore through South Florida. Among the devastation was a reptile breeding facility near Miami. Exotic snakes escaped. At the same time, overwhelmed pet owners began releasing captive Burmese pythons into the wild. What seemed like isolated incidents quietly evolved into an ecological crisis. Those early sightings were dismissed. A snake here, another there. But Burmese pythons, native to Southeast Asia, had found paradise. Florida's heat, humidity, and endless prey mirrored their natural habitat. And critically, they had no natural predators capable of controlling them. Over time, their numbers exploded. Today, experts estimate that between 100,000 and 300,000 Burmese pythons may inhabit South Florida. Each female can lay up to 100 eggs in a single clutch. Their camouflage renders them nearly invisible. For scientists, it became a war against a ghost. The consequences were devastating. Long-term studies documented staggering declines. Raccoons dropped by over 99% in some areas. Opossums declined nearly 99%. Bobcats fell by more than 87%. Marsh rabbits nearly vanished. Deer sightings plummeted. The Everglades didn't collapse overnight. In 2013, Florida launched the Florida Python Challenge, an annual competition inviting hunters to remove invasive snakes. By 2024, hundreds of participants from across North America joined the effort. Headlines celebrated big captures and five-figure prizes. In 1 year, nearly 300 snakes were removed during the competition. It sounded impressive until you compared it to the estimated population. Since 2017, contractors and hunters have removed over 23,000 pythons, but experts believe that may represent less than 1% of the total. For every snake captured, dozens more hatch elsewhere. Full eradication is now widely considered impossible. Florida escalated its response. Professional hunters were hired year-round. Drones scanned wetlands. Detector dogs tracked scent trails. Engineers developed robotic rabbits that emitted heat and odor to lure snakes. Biologists deployed scout snakes fitted with transmitters to locate breeding females. The effort was relentless. The results were incremental. And then the crisis deepened. Researchers discovered that Burmese pythons had introduced an unseen passenger, a parasitic lungworm known as Rhylietiella orientalis. Carried in python feces and spread through the food chain, the parasite began infecting native snake species. It invades the lungs, causing pneumonia, lesions, and in severe cases, death. 18 native snake species have already tested positive. Even if every python vanished tomorrow, the parasite would remain. The problem was no longer just a predator. It was an ecological ripple effect. That was the backdrop when Florida announced a controversial solution: restoring a native apex predator, the eastern indigo snake. To the public, it sounded absurd. Fighting snakes with more snakes? Social media erupted with comparisons to failed biological control experiments of the past. Skeptics questioned whether Florida had learned anything. But the eastern indigo snake is no invasive species. It is a threatened native predator that once ruled the southeastern United States. Growing up to 9 feet long, the indigo is non-venomous, powerful, and remarkably adaptable. It consumes rodents, frogs, birds, turtle eggs, and other snakes, including venomous species. It has demonstrated resistance to rattlesnake venom and does not hesitate to attack smaller serpents. Historically, indigos ranged across nearly 90 million acres of longleaf pine forest. But habitat destruction reduced that ecosystem to just 3% of its original extent. By 1978, the species was listed as threatened. Its decline was tied closely to the loss of gopher tortoise burrows, which provide shelter for more than 350 species. For decades, conservationists worked quietly to restore longleaf pine habitats and breed indigos in captivity. The reintroduction program was not impulsive. It was the culmination of years of ecological restoration. And then came a breakthrough. In the fall of 2023, trail cameras at the Apalachicola Bluffs and Ravines Preserve recorded wild-born eastern indigo hatchlings in North Florida, the first confirmed natural reproduction there in nearly 50 years. It was a turning point. The snakes were not merely surviving after release. They were reproducing, establishing territory, spreading into restored habitat. More than 500 indigos have now been reintroduced across Florida and Alabama, with monitoring programs documenting continued survival and movement. At the same time, something else unexpected happened. Wildlife cameras captured a bobcat killing an adult Burmese python, an unprecedented event. Alligators have been documented consuming juvenile pythons. Reports suggest even Florida panthers have confronted them. And eastern indigo snakes have been observed preying on young pythons. Nature, slowly, is responding. No one claims the indigo will eliminate Burmese pythons. That was never the goal. The objective is balance, not eradication. By re-establishing native predators and restoring habitat, Florida is rebuilding a system capable of regulating itself. The lesson is larger than snakes. Complex ecological crises rarely yield to simple solutions. Technology, funding, and manpower can slow damage, but long-term resilience comes from restoring natural relationships within ecosystems. The Everglades are not healed. The python population remains vast. The lungworm continues to spread. But for the first time in decades, the story is no longer entirely one-sided. Trail cameras no longer capture only invasion. They capture resistance, hatchlings, native predators adapting, habitat recovering. What once sounded laughable now stands as one of the most ambitious restoration efforts in modern conservation. Florida did not choose chaos. It chose patience, science, balance. The question now is not whether the eastern indigo snake can eliminate pythons.